Ever wondered why your company's Microsoft 365 deployments feel harder than they should? You hit next, next, finish on click to run, only to discover key apps missing, or worse, users drowning in update notifications. If this sounds familiar, stick around. I'll show you what really happens behind the scenes of click to run and how tweaking a single line in your XML can solve headaches you didn't know you had. The click to run, the illusion of simplicity. You click a few buttons, get the spinning wheel, and just like that, Office is installed across your org. Click to run makes it feel like anyone can deploy Microsoft 365 apps without breaking a sweat. A lot of admins see the promise: less manual work, no big downloads or ISO hunting, and no more dusty old MSI packages from the days of Windows 7. Everything is fast, everything is supposedly modern. But if you've run these installs more than a handful of times at scale, you already know the cracks appear pretty quickly. Let's say you roll out click to run for the finance team. They want Excel, Power Query, and some custom add-ins, maybe a connection to a data warehouse. Seems like a straight shot. Yet you get a ticket on Monday morning, Power Query is missing. Someone else can't find the solver add-in. Another user is locked out of Office because of a surprise license prompt. It's almost routine at this point. Meanwhile, HR's deployment went through, but instead of the basics, every machine ends up with publisher and access, apps they don't know, never use, and now want you to remove. Multiply these surprises across every department, and that super simple setup starts to show its true cost. It gets messier when updates start rolling in. Click to run's auto update is supposed to take care of itself, but in practice, users end up in the middle of important work with prompts demanding they close apps, or worse, Office starts updating right before a crucial meeting. Even basic security fixes can land at the worst possible moment if you aren't watching your update channels. Laptops left on overnight grab new builds, while other users fall out of sync because their machines dodged its update window. If you're lucky, you get support tickets. If you're unlucky, desk-side support spends the day walking from cubicle to cubicle, untangling the aftermath. Microsoft definitely had a reason for moving away from the ancient MSI installers. Those old deployments were rigid, hard to patch, and didn't play well with modern device management. With click to run, companies get faster installs, small footprint downloads, and a relatively painless way to keep pace with Microsoft's monthly feature engine. But what most admins miss is how generic those out-of-the-box settings actually are. Click to run doesn't know who you are, what your teams do, or what features matter in your business. It gives everyone the same bundle with all the defaults turned on, like a hotel breakfast buffet where you can't actually choose what's being served. The problem isn't that click to run is broken. It's that it's too broad. Most organizations leave the defaults untouched, trusting that Microsoft's recommended configuration is good enough. In reality, these settings are one size fits none. When you push out the standard install publisher and access sneak onto endpoints, Teams gets installed on every workstation, even those that run Citrix or VDI where you might want it left out. Everyone ends up with the same base language, even in multilingual offices. Default update channels get pushed everywhere, no matter how stable your users need their apps to be or how eager you are for new features. It's not just anecdote either. Recent industry data says that about 70% of SMBs run click to run straight out of the box, never customizing the deployment file or even realizing there's anything to tweak. Admins trust the process, thinking it should just work, and only crack open documentation when things go sideways. Ask around and you'll find most IT leads couldn't tell you what their current update channel even is, let alone why some teams are getting Outlook features 2 months late or seeing UI changes pop up out of nowhere. All that supposed convenience masks a lack of real control. You get a single installer, but no visibility into the details until something goes wrong. That means you spend less time deploying and way more hours cleaning up. The reality is business units get frustrated, users get confused, and IT gets stuck playing referee. Even little things, a missing shortcut or a surprise language pack, turn into unwelcome distractions. But here's the kicker. Most of these pain points are avoidable. There's a way to turn that mass deployment into something almost custom fit without adding layers of manual work. Picture what would happen if you could block Publisher automatically for HR. Always deploy Excel with all the finance features and make sure marketing gets the templates and add-ons they actually use. Instead of digging through support tickets, you'd be orchestrating deployments that actually match each team's needs. Understanding when click to run works and, more importantly, where it falls flat is the first step to getting ahead of these issues. Once you spot where the default settings trip you up, you're halfway to solving the problem. Now, let's see what actually happens when you don't settle for that generic install and try to take real control with customization. Unlocking XML. your secret weapon for smarter deployments. When someone on the IT team finally pulls up the Office deployment tool and texts, "Has anyone actually looked at this XML file?" you can pretty much see the panic dots pop up in the group chat. It's familiar, an XML config full of angle brackets, install options, and language codes. At first glance, it feels like you're peeking under the hood of something you were never meant to touch. If Click to Run was designed to keep things simple, XML looks like the opposite: technical, detailed, and a little intimidating. The truth? Most admins take one look, close the window, and vow never to touch it again unless there's a fire. But here's the thing: XML configuration is not half as scary as it looks. If you're used to PowerShell scripts or tweaking group policies, XML is nothing you can't handle. One line sets the install location. Another line keeps access off every computer in the building. If you want Office to go to the D drive because your C drive is filling up, there's a quick copy-paste for that. Suddenly, all those headaches when HR or finance gets the wrong apps start to disappear. For an IT pro, it's like finding out your favorite coffee spot has a secret menu. The basics are fine, but once you know what to order, your day gets 10 times better. Admins love to joke that Microsoft's defaults are nobody's defaults, and the stats back this up. Over half of large organizations now use XML to cut out apps their staff never open. This isn't just about saving disk space, though that helps. Cutting publisher or access means fewer updates to patch, less confusion for end users, and support teams who don't have to learn the ins and outs of niche software. It turns a sprawling catch-all Office deployment into something that feels purpose-built for your organization. Suddenly, users aren't asking why there's a new icon in their start menu every month or how to uninstall something they didn't request. Let's put this side by side. The default Click to Run install drops every Office app onto a machine. You get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Publisher Access, Teams, the full lineup, whether you wanted them or not. When you walk through the floor after a rollout, you notice unopened apps wasting space and update cycles. Now flip the switch. A simple XML config skips Publisher for HR, leaves Visio off legal systems, and makes sure only the folks that actually need access even see it. You end up with machines that boot faster, less bloat on SSDs, and users who don't call about random shortcut icons after patch day. Feedback trends up, support tickets drop. It's amazing how quickly you see wins. Maybe you need to ensure everyone's running Office in French and the help desk is tired of walking folks through language pack installs. XML lets you bake the right language in from the very start. Want OneDrive missing from your Citrix boxes? One tweak: need to move installs off the system drive because your imaging script is running low on space? That's 2 lines in the config. Most of the customization feels more like copy-pasting a template than deep coding. One admin I know keeps an archive of past XML files by department. Messy, maybe, but it keeps repeat requests down to a 5-minute job. Some of the best quick wins come from just being able to say no to the apps, add-ins, and even languages your users never needed. Each exclusion is less drag on the network and fewer endpoints at risk. When Microsoft pushes out the next security bulletin, it all adds up to a smoother, lighter M365 experience that actually feels tailored. Of course, once you've squashed the big annoyances like unneeded apps and wrong installs, you start to wonder how far you can take it. There's a real appetite for going deeper, especially in hybrid environments or organizations with more than a couple of regional offices. Need to ship Office with Japanese language packs for Tokyo, Spanish for Miami, and English everywhere else. XML can handle that. Want to ensure only specific machines in your pilot program get the bleeding edge features while everyone else stays safe on the stable track? There's a config line for channel assignments too. Even complex asks like automating rollouts to shared devices in a call center or fine-tuning deployments across dozens of business units are within reach. With XML, what looks like black magic becomes dead simple. You stop firefighting and start orchestrating. It's not just the domain of power users or scripting pros. Any admin with a little patience finds XML is the fastest way to move from generic installs to actual business value. So if you've been hoping for a middle ground between hands-off and completely bespoke, it's right here in black and white config. And if you're starting to picture an entire enterprise steered by a few clever configs, don't worry, we're about to step into exactly that space. Because XML's real power shows up when you hit enterprise scale and the requests get messy. Now, let's look at how you keep control when every department wants something different. Scaling up advanced XML tricks for real-world complexity. It always sounds great in the meeting. Let's standardize our Office deployment, but tailor it for each department. Anyone who's actually tried pushing M365 apps across more than a handful of teams knows what comes next: 20 competing requirements and a tidal wave of requests. Finance wants only Excel and Word, along with a handful of add-ins. Marketing wants every publishing tool under the sun. The regional branch in Tokyo needs PowerPoint in Japanese, while a remote call center wants shared device activation because 15 people use the same machine. IT ends up with a spreadsheet longer than their last hardware budget, and eventually the same catch-all deployment rolls out to everyone. Most teams compromise and wind up with machines full of software that half their users never open. Not long ago, I worked with a global firm that finally broke out of that cycle. They didn't start with some giant automation tool. The team just dug into what XML could actually handle. Marketing got their own XML config, publisher and Visio included, access out. Developers received a neatly trimmed install: Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, delivered in English and French, no extra apps cluttering up the system. HR, meanwhile, got a clean basic install with no Power Query and no distractions. The tech team set up configs for shared device activation at several remote offices, which had always dragged down help desk time with weird licensing prompts. That same rollout used XML to control where files installed, not just the drive letter, but the actual subdirectory on each workstation, because imaging scripts clashed during Windows upgrades. They started with about a dozen configs and grew from there, adapting by department and region instead of sticking everyone with the same one-size-fits-no-one package. Language packs sound simple at first, but nothing wastes time like fielding calls from users struggling to change the UI back to their native tongue. The XML configuration lets you pin languages from the start and even add fallback languages. In the Tokyo office, every install included Japanese and English, while sites in Quebec got French and English pre-baked, so macros and proofing tools actually worked out of the box. All of this without sending anyone to retrain users on managing language options from within Office itself. Once you get comfortable with the syntax, it's faster to adjust an XML file than to remote into a laptop and fix mistakes post-install. Shared computer activation is another spot where XML comes through. Think about education labs or hospitals with rotating staff. One tweak and Office switches modes, so each user activates only during their session and isn't fighting licensing errors a week later. The generic deployment can't do that. You end up stuck with tickets about unlicensed product errors. Even with Microsoft's regular tweaks, this XML option makes all the difference for environments that cycle through users quickly. Telemetry catches a lot of admins off guard. Microsoft pushes telemetry for a reason. Usage stats and error trends help you track rollout health and troubleshoot more effectively. The XML lets you point installs to a specific telemetry share or server. If you want to use the Office telemetry dashboard, still supported, though more features are moving to the cloud. This is where you lay the groundwork. Switching it on means you're not just guessing how people use Office or why certain add-ins keep failing. You can spot trends before tickets come flooding in. Update channels can also be handled directly in XML. Pilot teams that love new features can be put on current channel for rapid feedback. Sensitive departments like accounting or frontline legal stick with monthly enterprise or semi-annual channels. You can map all this in a single configuration so the right people get feature previews while everyone else has proven stable builds. It's practical in the real world where one department can't afford surprise UI changes, but another is happy to test out Copilot integrations before anyone else. Picture those XML configs as a family tree. At the top, there's a base template, no bloat, just the core apps. Branches handle language, app mix, or activation mode by department or region. Over time, you add leaves for special cases, a team in the UK with dual language needs, or an R&D group always on the edge channel. The structure keeps things tidy and scalable. If you're worried about complexity, it's all about the rollout process. Start with a small pilot, maybe a handful of test users from each department. Run the config, gather feedback, and look for misses, extra apps, missing add-ins, or silent install failures. Tweak the XML, retest, and only then push to the broad group. When you're happy, automate the process with your device management tool of choice, Intune, MECM, or even a Swiss Army knife script. You stop firefighting and start actually shaping the M365 experience. Instead of answering the same fix my install ticket over and over, IT gets to focus on the projects that move your business forward. It's a shift from chaos to clarity, and the responses from users always confirm the payoff. You've solved the biggest customization headaches, And the last step is managing how and when new features reach your users. Update channels actually become strategic. So how do you pick the right pace for your rollout while keeping everyone happy? Update channels, the secret lever for stability and innovation. If you've ever fielded complaints about a new office ribbon redesign dropping in overnight, or users asking why a mail merge feature has suddenly vanished, you already know update channels aren't just a checkbox you set and forget. The reality is, most people outside IT barely notice these settings until something breaks or changes without warning. Pick the right channel and nothing feels remarkable. Miss the mark and you're that admin everyone is calling after hours, wondering why Outlook suddenly looks like it's from a preview build, or why Excel's macros stopped working before end of month reporting. Update channels always sound pretty straightforward. Current channel gets updates fast every few weeks. Semi-annual rolls out changes twice a year, giving more time for testing and stability. Monthly enterprise splits the difference, keeping things a bit fresher but less risky than current. But the real world is messy. The wrong update channel leaves you stuck in two bad places: users getting new features or interface redesigns before training is ready, or teams stuck with bugs everyone else got patched weeks ago. Everyone has that story. Maybe a salesperson walks into a client call and finds their PowerPoint layout shifted, or an old bug lingers in Word while Microsoft's changelog promises the fix coming soon. Our team once mapped out update releases across channels on a simple timeline. On the left, current channel stacked feature rollouts like fast food, new icons, AI tools, snappy additions every few weeks. Move right, and the semi-annual line sat almost still, updates landing more like a slow freight train. Monthly enterprise looked more measured, with enough testing time for departments that value consistency but don't want to fall behind on collaboration features. That visual hit home when we watched a sales team lose hours rebuilding presentations after an update shifted chart formatting. The next week, finance realized their report macros failed after an Excel patch deployed ahead of the quarter close, and we could point directly to the update channel settings. So whose advice do you trust when balancing speed and stability? Microsoft MVPs will tell you. Current channel is best for pilot groups and IT teams who can handle the learning curve and spot bugs early. The rest of the business should hold steady on semi-annual, where big changes arrive more gently. This way, your IT staff can try out every new feature, hunt for issues before they become widespread, and feed back observations to Microsoft, or at least prepare documentation for everyone else. It's a strategy that lowers the blast radius of any new upgrade or surprise dependency break, but you don't have to juggle different installers or manual steps for each group anymore. This is where XML again becomes your lever. The same configuration file that lets you skip publisher for HR or preload French for Montreal can assign update channels to specific sets of users. You can carve out groups for pilots, keep your executive team on the most stable build, and let research or test labs play with features early. Each deployment gets its own feed, controlling risk and surprise. If OPS gets burned by a broken add-in, you can move them back to a safer channel without having to rebuild their entire environment. Making these changes is relatively straightforward, but testing matters. We always recommend pushing new update channel assignments first to a few trusted users in each department. Watch behavior, see who runs into trouble and who barely notices a difference. Collect early feedback and tweak your XML before going wide. Ramp up rollout only after the first batch goes smoothly. For most organizations, this avoids the all hands on deck scramble when a feature breaks something in the wild. One underused trick: the Office deployment tool reports. Hidden inside an otherwise unremarkable app, these reporting features show you exactly what will happen with your deployment before anyone clicks install. They'll point out app mismatches, missing components, or policy conflicts before they hit a user's desktop. It's not flashy, but those previews have saved my team from mistakes we didn't spot even after several manual passes through the config. The payoff is significant. Get update channels right, and you balance the tension between innovation and stability instead of swinging wildly between them. Features appear when you want them, bugs disappear before users notice, and the IT hotline doesn't become a complaint desk every time Office updates. Perhaps best of all, the pressure lifts from admins to just make it work, because you actually have fine-tuned control over what's changing and when. By steadily refining your rollout strategy, including how and when update channels get assigned, you materialize real benefits for users. People stop seeing their workflow disrupted by surprise changes. Teams grow to trust the updates they receive instead of bracing for chaos on patch day. Office apps rollouts move from firefighting mode to just another smooth, expectable IT operation. Of course, nailing update channels is just part of the overall approach to smarter M365 deployments, but it's often the most visible step to your end users since it shapes the pace and stability of their day-to-day tools. When you line this up alongside XML customizations, you're in control, and users actually notice the difference. For anyone still trying to wrangle generic off-the-shelf deployments, here's what actually makes the difference for your real-world rollout. Most admins see M365 apps deployment as a set and forget process until the help desk starts pinging with user complaints. The real advantage comes from taking that first step past the defaults, even if it's just cutting out one app or finally setting the right update channel. Each XML tweak brings your rollout closer to what your users actually need. Over time, those changes add up, and you notice fewer issues making their way to your inbox. If you haven't experimented yet, try a small change in your next deployment. Your future self and everyone using Office will see the difference in daily work.